Good Lord. Okay. Here we go.
Welcome to the New Media Show, where each Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, UTC +4, Todd, Cochrane and Rob Greenlee take their over 30 combined years of leadership in the podcasting space to discuss, dissect, and deconstruct the current podcasting news, forecasts, trends, and predictions. Now here are your hosts, Academy of Podcasting Hall of Famers, Todd Cochrane and Rob Greenlee.
Well, here we are, Rob. Welcome to the New Media Show.
Yeah, we're back. Thank you, Todd. It's great to be back again. So I think we're on a roll here. I think we're going to even be back next week, too, I believe.
That's good. And, you know, here's something. I was just talking to you a little bit about it before the start of the show. You know that you've been podcasting a long time when stuff that you bought in 2005 is breaking.
Right. Tech does not last forever. I think we've known that for a while.
You know, right. I've got this, in the original rack, when I just had the big bottom, which is still in the path, the equalizer, a compressor, and then my amplifier. That's all powered on a rack, and it's a Furman power conditioner.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally, that was like one of the first things I bought when I built my studio in 2004. Well, today, I reached over there to handily flip the switch up, and I'm like, didn't turn on. Ruh-roh. Now, it's not an emergency. It can be worked around with an extension cord. It's, it'd be fine.
Right.
So I started kind of playing with the switch, and the switch has gotten to the point where the rocker is probably just about done.
It's always the switch.
It's always the switch. So here's the funny thing. I do have the tech to change the switch, but for $127, I ordered a new one. It'll go in there. Then when I have time, I'll pop the lid, pop the switch out, look the part number up, order a switch.
Well, and now that you raise this, we should probably talk about, why do you have a power conditioner? There's probably a lot of people who don't know what that is.
Yeah, I use a power conditioner because the way this studio is set up, unlike many of you who are now on USB microphones, this connector here is XLR, goes to a regular mixer. There's a whole path. The way this whole thing is integrated, what Rob is coming in is on Mac Mini. If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have to do it this way. Right, because the way people, it's overkill now. You don't need all this stuff. No. And so I'm on an analog path. So analog at times can induce hum from the power. So it's actually dual based. The main power supply, the power conditioner is hooked into, see which way, if I got it backwards maybe. So the power conditioner, I actually plug a UPS into the power conditioner. So I have a very nice special CyberDeck UPS in a rack that basically takes care of the TriCaster and all the gear, but the power conditioner is in front of the CyberDeck. So what that has ultimately done throughout the years is we've stayed pretty clean on sound. Now, the biggest culprit that I have the biggest issue with and providing loopback issues is the Rodecaster. So when I push the Rodecaster into another piece of device, because it just sits here on the desk and feeds an audio input on the mixer, and then I can do other things here when we wanted to, like where we could do Clubhouse and all that stuff. That is the machine that gives me the biggest problems for loopback issues. Now, if it was self-contained, and just doing a thing, but no, I've got it wired up like probably no one else would ever do it. So, yeah, and so, I have another device in the other room from Blackmagic Design that was introduced in 2010. It's basically a video capture. Now I'm recording here on the TriCaster, but that ends up with a 50 gig video file. The Blackmagic device basically is just a little box, plugs a video input cable into it, ties the USB to my Mac, and it runs a piece of software that does nothing but video capture.
Right.
So that box has over the years has given me issues from time to time. Had one this afternoon, so I was like, but here's what you do. You go on eBay. So this stuff that is a little bit older, that works perfectly fine, that other people have said, we're going to go on to the newer and better thing. I just went on eBay and picked that device. That was originally $500. I picked one of those up for $99.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of gear that maybe people would never know they need. Like, okay, down here is the live, you can't see it, but where my finger's pointing is the live stream broadcaster. Now, no one's using live stream broadcasters anymore. Matter of fact, live stream got rid of it because they didn't want people using it for the purpose. It was fantastic. Here's the original use of a live stream broadcaster. You mount it on top of a camera, plug an HDMI cable into it, and you could connect via Wi-Fi or have a data connection and stream through that little itty bitty box.
Right.
And they were about $500 when they were brand new. So
and a lot of those could connect to like a cellular data network too. So you could basically go anywhere with them. Yeah.
So I was running mine at one time off my mobile phone, connected to a hotspot and streaming with it. Now everybody said, you can just stream with your phone now. Well, yeah, you can. But I have the live stream software per se. Matter of fact, right here is the key to unlock my live stream software. But I don't use the live stream software, but I use that little broadcaster to connect to the live stream account so we can stream on live stream. Now, very few people watch it over there, but 2 or 3 of us have I basically pay for the account, and then 2 or 3 of the tech podcast people use it. So what's interesting is I had 2 of those to begin with. Mine kind of like 1-2 years ago quit. And then last year, one of them, the screen, it was still working, but you couldn't read the screen no more. It had one of those green LEDs. So back on eBay I go, and for $99, I got sent one that was virtually hardly used. And so it's one of those things where what's broke don't fix. And, until I go to completely restructure the studio, I'm not. Why spend full retail when you can get stuff on eBay?
Yeah, that's true. If you can find some deals over there, that's all good. Well, so all of your audio gear really plugs into that power conditioner, right? That's the source of power for your whole infrastructure.
Right. And actually,
that's why it's critical.
Yeah, and I've got 2 of those because there's 2 racks of gear. So I've got one and one, and the one that's the oldest, the one that's been in the rack literally since 2004. Now, you think about that, 17-year run on that box, that ain't bad. And I think I paid $99 for it originally. And they just ordered a replacement. It's probably going to be more better. And, and up until this point, everything was good. But when the power didn't come on, I was like, ruh-roh, 5 minutes before the show, because I'm usually just getting the studio ready to go right before you show up. So a dead power source makes it a little challenging to do the show. And I'm sitting over here like watching it because the Denon recorder that I use, the rack recorder, it's recording the audio portion of the show. All the audio is being routed through this thing. So I'm like, if all of a sudden I disappear, it might be from audio. It might be because the switch rocked just a nudge. Because I had to kind of wiggle it just to get it right. You couldn't smash it all the way in. You had to back off a little bit. So now I'll leave that gear on until the replacement comes. I won't touch it. I'll leave that turned on, not risking another that finally says, okay, I'm done. I'm not turning back on. So that's right. So you don't want that not in the middle of the show. But anyway, stuff just gets old. It does. I had to replace stuff now and then. Yeah. It was, and I had to kind of laugh because Chris, one of the folks that we worked with at CES who brought the gear in, he was unpacking some stuff and my eyeballs got kind of big because they were in the early days. I really, really wanted this 3 sensor point tilt zoom camera from Sony. It was a HD. Those suckers were out of sight from a cost perspective.
Hmm.
There was no way I was ever going to be able to afford to buy one of those. So anytime I'd see one, I'd drool, because I knew how good the video looked. And out of the box, he pulls 3 of those. And I said, wow, you were a big spender. He said, oh, no. He said, I got these off eBay. He said I got them for $150 a piece. And I'm like, really? And you have to be careful because you could get some of those cameras with thousands and tens of thousands of hours on them. So you have to go. But he said I bought 3. He said they were all good, worked perfectly. And really, because we're streaming on the web at 1080, we're not worried about capturing in 4K. That glass inside those devices and those sensors are still fantastic.
Crystal clear, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, are those the ones that kind of look like an R2D2
Yeah.
that kind of spin on an axis?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I've got point tilt zooms here in the studio that are from NewTek that are NDI. And, but in my opinion, the sensors in those are subpar to even those cameras from Sony that are now, oh my God, 10, 12 years ago.
Well, they're probably larger apertures.
Larger
so they capture a lot more
aperture,
light.
yeah,
Right.
and in real glass, it's a real,
It's not plastic.
yeah,
or
it's
something.
not, yeah. So from that perspective, I was kind of, I couldn't, and he had some other cameras there that I was like taking pictures of because there's stuff now available. You can get HDMI cameras that are, well, I'll see if I can find one. I saved them in my Amazon wish list and just show the audience this. And again, this is for people that may be thinking about going streaming and they're maybe going to use a webcam or.
Well, certainly video is a hot topic.
Yeah.
All the data is showing that content creators are starting to create a lot of money over there. I think the CEO of YouTube said that was it 40% of content creators are making like 10,000 a month or something over on YouTube now. It just tells you how
40
much audience is.
Well, 40% of people on YouTube are not making money.
No, well, of the content creators that they've enabled, I guess.
Oh,
that's what they said.
no, I see. But
yeah, I'll have to pull that data up more precisely later. But
you can't see this, Rob, because the way I got us wired here, but this is a camera from MOKOSE, Makosi, HDMI camera, HE 1080p, and it's $109. And this is the camera we use when we stream live from CES. This was, sitting on a little tripod with a little alligator clip, and it blew me away. I couldn't believe it. Now, I'd seen this tech before from another company, and here's the skinny. If you look at that camera, those folks that are just on, they go to Amazon and look at this. Again, MOKOSE HDMI camera. Those basically have they've got all kinds of brand labels on them. So some manufacturer in China has made this, licensed them, and then people just slap a label on them, and then they mark them up to $249 or whatever it is. But this company has a whole line of that stuff. That, and it's also amazing to me is some of the stuff that I used to pay big money for, like Blackmagic designed bidirectional SDI to HDMI converters. Those used to be $300-$400. Now $75. So because there's been enough stuff come on the market, they weren't the only game in town. It probably only cost them $30 to make it to begin with, but they had this huge markup 10 years ago. Just little do you know. So I would encourage people, if you're looking for a certain type of gear, don't be afraid of eBay. Do not. It's, in my opinion.
But you do need to know what you're looking for.
So you do.
Yeah. Get something that's.
And you have to, and sometimes you go to, let's say like that Sony PTZ model that I was jonesing for. Right. There is different generations of that. So you have to know which generation you wanted, because you might get one that was like first gen, and that'd be like 20 years old, and you don't want that camera. No. You want Gen 3 or Gen 4 of that. That's 10 years or so. But brand new PTZs today can cost as much as $3,000-$4,000.
Yeah.
So what are you getting that is better, quote unquote? Well, most of those cameras are not 4K. We don't shoot in 4K here. I just need 1080p.
Yeah, there's not a lot of use for 4K.
No,
right
not for what this. We're only pushing 720 on the stream. So why have a 4K camera when you're going to? And I know that now there's 8K cameras coming. You'll be able to see the dot on a pimple. Is what you'll be able to see. You'll be it.
I don't know that I want that much resolution.
No, and neither do I. You see the wrinkles in living color here, but
right.
I think if you're, again, you don't have to do this with these USB microphones.
Yeah.
And you think about like this microphone here, this SMB7, which you and I both have. It takes a lot of preamplifier power to push this thing, and
it takes a lot of gain boost.
Yeah, a lot of gain boost.
Sound boost.
And I'm lucky, knock on wood. In the early days, I had these real nice condenser mics and I had a tube amplifier, and I don't even want to think about it. It's still sitting there. It's running through today. I pray that thing never gives up the ghost, because it's the preamp for this mic that goes into the Mackie, and then I can set the Mackie real low, and that keeps the shh down. But again, if you're on USB mic, you don't have to worry about gain levels or anything anymore.
Yeah, and not all mics you have to worry about. There's only certain typically dynamic mics are the ones that are a little weaker. But yeah, on that comment that the CEO of YouTube said YouTube has seen a 40% year-over-year increase in channels making more than $10,000 a year in income.
I would suspect because of the pandemic, I'm watching a lot of YouTube right now. So
I think a lot of people are giving up on mainstream media.
I have completely.
Right.
It's kind of funny because I actually found a live video of a local news station that gives local news. And I'm like, I can just be on the website and watch the local news. I don't even have to have, a TV subscription anymore. Now, I will admit there are some things that if I had a TV subscription, there's some channels I would probably watch some content. But, sometimes if you have Hulu or, one of those, you can find that stuff. But
if you want to watch live sports or something like that, it's kind of hard to beat, the mainstream channels that are,
so
available.
Anyway, enough talking about gear. So podcasting is under assault.
It is now, huh?
Yes, it is. So,
again,
by the way,
or the same.
Well, let's hear. Let me just. I would love. So, have you guys gotten a call recently and had contingency planning by anybody?
What do you mean? I'm not sure of the context of that.
Well, podcasting is under assault. Scientists, musicians are all
under assault by whom?
They're all looking to have Rogan deplatformed.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, right.
So the question is, have you guys had any calls like we may need to fire up the account again?
No, actually, no. Haven't had any of that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think it was an artist that came out saying that it's either him or Joe Rogan. Right. Yeah.
And
so, yeah. What can you say, Todd?
Well, Rogan's still on, isn't he? So far.
I think he's got a much larger audience than Neil Young has. I'll just put it to you that way. So
yeah,
I think Joe's gonna win that one.
Yeah. So. Well, but if a couple more artists jump on and say get rid of him or get rid of my music, that becomes a trend. Spotify would be in trouble.
Yeah. I suppose it's possible.
It's possible.
I think it would take quite a few of them to do that. And I think it's the whole debate on that stuff right now. It seems a little old.
There was a Twitter thread.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Before we go anywhere else, this show is now available to be donated. You can donate Satoshis to this. You can boost the show.
Right.
And they said, let the confetti fly. The new media show is on. So throw us the Satoshis. I guess they're 1/58,000th of a Bitcoin. So if you want to send us 58,000 Satoshis, that would be great. You know.
Do we know exactly how someone can actually do that?
Well, you have to use a certain kind of app, an app that will support it.
Yep.
And so anyway, the details are over on Podcast Index and podcast over at Pod News as well. So okay,
I think we'll have to have somebody come on to explain that whole process.
All right, so the process of, and I screwed myself up here because I had another. Oh, I know what the other thought was. It's real simple to get started, and basically put some extra code in your RSS feed. And so the Podcast 2.0 code has been put in New Media Show's feed to be able to have that link and everything's there. But it would be interesting for someone.
It has to funnel through certain
apps,
podcast players that are connected with that,
right? That are tied in.
Right.
So maybe we can have Dave or one of those guys come on at some point and explain how listeners actually make a donation. That actual physical process.
Yeah, what app they need to use to actually handle that.
Because it's a little, getting it set up for me was easy. It took like 10 minutes. It was not difficult to get it set up.
Yeah. And do you have to use like Ethereum or do you have to use Bitcoin?
No. It's Satoshi is a derivative of Bitcoin. Okay, that's the best thing I'll be able to say.
Right.
And there are ways to withdraw your money, but I don't know how you fund Satoshis. If you fund that from Bitcoin or if you fund it from a debit card or what you do.
Yeah, I think Sam said through that Lightning network that's being attached to Bitcoin is a way of doing it.
Yeah, through Lightning. But again, you got to somehow tie your wallet to be able to do the donation. So, so anyway, so you can boost the New Media Show for those of you that know how to do that.
Right.
And let's see here, Fountain app. Oh, someone's been replying. Oh, the Fountain app replied. So, so maybe we can have some of those folks on to talk at one time. But here is somebody, whoever's the Twitter account that owns the 80s movie podcast, you must listen to the show or you're following me on Twitter because I started a thread on January 13th that said, be very clear. People do not like the freedom of speech at Joe Rogan has on his show. Be very wary of those that want to stifle speech in any way. You have a choice not to listen. And I said, the woke can go hang out and listen to mainstream media instead. And then the 80s movie podcast replied, it's almost as if you don't actually understand what freedom of speech entails and are trying to use it to say he should have freedom from consequences for what he says. I never said he should have freedom from consequences. So again, let me read what he says. It's almost as if you don't actually understand what freedom of speech entails and are trying to use it to say he should have freedom from consequences for what he says. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had long-held laws concerning libel and slander.
Right.
My reply was, never said there are not consequences from free speech, but you can say it and the chips will fall where they may. But I'll never be silenced. I control my brand, my feed, my podcast. And
Yeah, I
then
agree with that. Those consequences.
that's
That
right.
has nothing to do with having the freedom to do it. Right?
And then he replied again. He said, freedom of speech is not a catch-all, no matter what you seem to think. And guess what? The fallout about Joe Rogan is literally the chips falling where they may, which you're advocating for. You can't have it both ways. No, I am advocating what Joe says on his show is subject to examination, is subject to response, is subject to public scrutiny, is subject to having Spotify keep his contract with him. There are consequences for what Joe says on his show. Or
There's
what
always that. There's good and bad.
That's
There's
good
and bad.
So my response was LOL. Freedom of speech is well defined. Me, fought and stand for freedom of speech, regardless if you like it or not. And then he says, you know what? I'm done with your performative BS. You know what I'm saying is the truth. You just have to play this game to stay relevant in your field. Never should have gotten involved in your game. Good night and goodbye. Did I ever in that Twitter stream say that their freedom of speech is without consequence? No. So I don't know. He was so stuck on... Yes. Okay. So there's another individual out there who's...
Well, consequences can also mean that, something happens to Joe's show on Spotify.
That's right.
I think it's also up to Spotify's discretion, because they also have freedom.
That's right.
Too.
So
they have a terms of service
so
that they have to adhere to.
Let's go back in history when Alex Jones was delisted from everywhere. Yeah. Okay. Does Alex Jones still have a podcast? Yep. Is Alex Jones still on the air? Yep. Is Alex Jones still being criticized about speech? Yep. Okay. Is Alex Jones a show that I listen to? No. But again, it's the personal choice, right?
Right.
So, but Alex Jones has a podcast on his own website, controlled by his own RSS feed. And because there's ability to subscribe to a podcast feed without Apple having the show in the index. As a matter of fact, you can actually subscribe to Alex Jones' podcast in the Apple Podcast app manually. Not that anyone talks about that.
Their directory.
Just not in the library.
Right.
But you have a personal choice to listen to that show. Now, there is in my point. So
he's claiming to be deplatformed, but he really isn't.
He is de-directorized.
He's delisted, but not
delisted.
Right.
But he's still available as a podcast on most podcast apps because you can manually subscribe to the show. Yes, it's harder.
As long as these listening apps make that feature
available. That's right.
Yeah.
So
not all of them do, though.
So my point of view is, and it remains, and we've talked about this many. Oh, Mike Dell says Satoshi is 100th million of a Bitcoin, but it is Bitcoin.
Well, you can't say one Bitcoin, else you'd be giving us like $30,000.
You'll have to give us 100 million Satoshis for one Bitcoin. So
right. It's like 10 cents.
No, if you give us 1 million Satoshis, we will have $38,000. Or whatever whatever.
Oh, okay.
If we have
100 million Satoshis to
100
Bitcoin.
Yeah, 100 million Satoshis to one Bitcoin.
To one Bitcoin.
But it is Bitcoin. All right. Here's my point of view. And this is why even when I say podcasting is the last bastion of free speech.
It's true.
It's true.
That doesn't mean that there aren't consequences for it.
That's right. Yeah. If I slander somebody, or there's consequences from speech,
and it's usually social consequences more than
right.
Anything.
Yeah,
more than anything else.
But when you're talking about companies and people, it's always good to say, in my opinion,
right.
In my opinion, so and so is a crook. In my opinion, so and so is a thief. Not as soon as you say, so and so is a thief. Well, You might still get sued the other way, but the last way I just said it, you'll definitely get sued.
Right.
And you're going to pay.
Right.
So it's always in the language, your opinion. Everyone's allowed to have an
Right.
opinion.
Hey, Todd, did you see this survey that came out and saying, and I'm sure you won't be surprised, 94% of people listen to podcasts alone. Are you surprised at that?
They actually did a study?
Yeah, I guess so. Yep. And it says 30% of all listening happens while working or studying.
I can't listen to podcasts while I work.
No, I can't either. Or study. I would think it'd get in the way of that, but
Yeah.
that's just me. But yeah, and as you think about that number, and really in a lot of ways, why I think that's an interesting number, that 94% of people listen to podcasts alone, is that it does speak to the core of the medium. It's an individual, it's a personal medium. I think that the smart speakers were playing to group listening, and I think that percentage tells you a little bit of why those smart speaker platforms really haven't had wide adoption of podcast listening.
Yeah. So I had a call. I had at least 2 calls this week with podcasters, and the advice I was always giving them, part of their production advice, I was saying, just remember, when you say and ask a question in your show, what do you think? You're addressing to one, not what do you all think. What do you think? Because 94% of the people that are listening to your show are listening as an individual. And it's even though you and I are doing this show together, we know that we're talking literally to one person.
Yeah, it's like there's a third person at the table.
Yeah, but they're drinking coffee and hanging out and being silent.
Right.
Except if they get on social media or wherever else.
I mean, that's how you need to present yourself, right? I mean, that's how we should talk to.
Yeah.
To
sometimes we talk directly to people.
Right. If we
call
them out by name, and then it's like what we do to James or whatever, we call him out individually, and because we know he's listening. So it's great. And I'm talking about James Cridland from Pod News. So he's constantly giving us feedback.
James Cridland.
Right. He's constantly giving us feedback, and his newsletter is a great resource. I mean, he's been pulling information together about the global industry of podcasts for a few years now, and it's been real helpful.
Yep.
So yeah. So if you, I also saw this too in Pod News too. I guess as people increasingly pay to remove commercials from TV services, I don't know if
I pay.
You've noticed that.
I pay to remove commercials from YouTube. It's the best, whatever the money is a month. That's probably the best money I spend.
Right. Like podcasting is a way to reach audiences that are avoiding ads. Not quite. That was a quote from Westwood One. I think maybe what they're trying to say is that because podcast advertising, the advertising in podcasts is light compared to television.
That's true.
That it's more of a attractive medium for people that like to avoid ads.
It also depends on the network, because some of those are doing some pretty heavy loads. But
well, yeah, and it's also that's a dovetail into programmatic too.
Right.
I think there's pressure in the medium to get more ads into podcasts and get more ads into more shows, and I think we're going to see that over the next few years. But there's debate going on out there about programmatic advertising and podcasting has a little bit of a black eye. It's been that way for a while now. But I think it could be improving.
Well, I'm going to just tell you my personal experience here of late has been pretty impressed.
I know it's getting better, and I think that's the key.
Really has. It's impressed me
the future,
a lot.
It's the future of advertising in podcasting, there's no question.
So I think without saying it, I think that it could be the salvation for smaller shows.
Well, it's an opportunity for smaller shows, right?
Yeah.
More and more, right?
Yeah.
So Todd, have you got pulled into this world of the potential closing of Timber
Timber.
as
No.
a podcast host? So I guess
Yeah,
there's
we heard about it, and we're doing our social announcements and seeing who's over there that needs rescuing.
Yes, this is something that happens every year, at least a couple times, right?
Let's be honest with you, this one I hadn't heard of. But here's the funny thing.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Here's the funny thing, and did you see who reported that?
Yeah, Tanner.
Tanner did. So
Tanner Campbell.
Tanner, I thought you were just going exclusive to Spotify.
Right. He's
are,
dropping the bomb on these guys.
Are you guys, Tanner, are you still on Apple and all those other locations? For those of you that don't know, Tanner came on the show here about a year ago, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And basically made the pitch that Spotify would be paying podcasters revenue share.
Yeah, you just do everything on Anchor and Spotify and just ignore your RSS feed.
Just how's that so far working out? So I'm just making, we love you, Tanner, but it was interesting that Tanner dropped that news. I was like, was Tanner using Timber for his hosting or?
Well, he talked about it in his podcast.
Oh.
So Tanner does a podcast called Podcasting Sucks.
Oh, is that a new show?
Well, it's a show that he's been doing for a while. I'm not sure how new it is. It's actually hosted on Megaphone.
So I just Googled.
So it's not on Anchor.
Oh, there. Okay, here. Their website is timber.fm. And let's look at what their pricing was. During our initial launch phase, Timber's one price $25 per month. As many podcasts as you need. Needed download as many times as your listeners want with as many users you need. Plus private podcasting, live coaching. All right, so who launched this thing?
Chris
Hickman.
I guess he's former Microsoft, I guess.
John Christensen. And the MobiCast sounds familiar. I think I've heard of that show before. So
there hasn't been any official announcement from these folks that they're shutting down in a couple of weeks, but Tanner broke the news.
Yeah, so their last blog post was October 4th. And that's usually a pretty, is anybody hosting over there? Do we even know who's hosting over there?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I was looking for a list of shows. I was going to look at their stats. Okay. Well, it's not easy.
No, it's not.
So
I mean, it's hard to compete. There's a lot of hosting companies now.
And
all vying for.
Yep, and free.
Yeah,
free host. So
yeah, definitely. So I think it's interesting. It's something that happens on occasion in the medium, and it contributes to oftentimes Todd and I's skepticism of new companies that get started in the medium, if they're going to make it or not.
Right.
So it's unfortunate because a lot of people put a lot of effort and investment and all those kind of things into these things to get it done, and when they don't work out, it's horrible.
So I wonder if James, is RSS.com paying you guys for the promotion?
You saw that, yeah.
Yeah. Host with Timber. Podcast OSR has your back. Use promo code Timbers for a free year of hosting if you're moving a Timber podcast. So
I think RSS.com, I think, is a sponsor of the newsletter.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Potentially. And we do have to, the folks at RSS.com have contributed to the show too. So
Right.
definitely appreciate their ongoing support as well.
Right.
So interesting. Interesting.
It is interesting.
Of course, I just knew this was coming. The podcast host is launching the world's first generative podcast NFT collection. Minted on a Solana backchain, 100 episodes released over the next 5 weeks on 0.2 SOL each. Don't even have any clue. That is a foreign
Squeak.
language for me.
Greek. Yep.
In addition, the podcast making app run by the Podcast Hope has received $675,000 in funding. So, let's talk about this Ambi's announcement.
Okay.
So,
which one?
Well, have they announced the winners or nominees, or
no? Actually, the hosts of the show have been announced.
Right, Ross Matthews and Nikki Boyer.
Right.
Co-hosting. So that's going to bring that up. Very attractive individuals.
Yep.
They're
all Hollywood types.
See here. Talk with Ross Matthews, dynamic duo Ross Matthews and Nikki Boyer. 2021 Podcast of the Year winner. Will co-host its second annual awards for excellence in audio. March 22nd. So let me look at my calendar here. So what day does that fall? Does that fall the day before
Podcast Movement? It's the day before the first day of Podcast Movement.
Oh, so it's that evening. Is that going to be the part? There's a party, I think, happening on the 22nd for Podcast Evolutions, or maybe not a party. Maybe it's just.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Let me go look at the schedule.
What's happening there? But
because we were looking at schedule the other day. Okay, so Evolutions 23rd. So the schedule, here's the schedule. Dun, da, da, da. Wednesday, March 23rd, Infinite Dial Edison Research, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So I guess you don't have to have a ticket to go to that. But
so that's on the 22nd?
Yes, the 23rd, 11 a.m. to 12:30.
Okay, but there's nothing else happening on the 22nd.
Oh, no, nothing's happening on the 22nd. Aha. I don't think I fly in until the 22nd.
Yeah, that's what I'm flying into.
So I don't think it's not like they're giving tickets out to that thing, right?
I'm not sure how to get tickets to it. Right off the top of my head right now.
That's so they like. Do I have to pay for a table or something?
If there's a lot of capacity, I think is the question. So I'm not sure what the capacity is at this moment.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, so it's going to be at the Mayan Theater in Los Angeles.
How close is that?
It's going to be in a theater.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, and that's MAYAN Theater in Los Angeles.
Huh.
It's not going to be too far away from where the
event's at.
Where the Podcast Movement event is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
but it is going to be live streamed on YouTube and Twitch. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is an ACAST welcome party 7 to 9 p.m. on Wednesday. Then the iHeart party off site 8 to 11. iHeart, please let us talk. Now, what's interesting about this schedule? I don't know how many days the expo hall is open. It's not listed here. I'm going to have to figure that out. But there are a full set of tracks Thursday and Friday. Podcast Hall of Fame ceremonies Friday night. Friday party off-site starts at 8 to 11. And then there's actually breakouts and panels on Saturday.
Right.
So do we know when the exhibit hall is, what that schedule is?
I don't happen to know, but they usually open it up. What, the day after the first day, or
Well,
it could be the first day. So
well,
it'd be like the 23rd, 24th, and
I
25th,
I
maybe.
don't know.
Or it could be the 24th, 25th, and 26th.
Yeah, Mackenzie takes care of this, so I guess we'll figure it out. But
I would imagine it'll be the 24th, 25th, and 26th would be my guess.
yeah, well, let's see. Maybe it'll only be for 2 days, but because that's what they did on the last one was.
Oh, really? It was only 2 days?
Yeah, because I think they cut it. No, what did they do? It wasn't. Maybe it was some event. There was still stuff going on Saturday, and then they chopped the exhibits. Maybe it wasn't Podcast Movement, but yeah, we'll have to get Dan on here and and have a
we'll have Dan on here in the next few weeks.
But if you do want to go to Podcast Movement Evolutions, I'm sure, Rob, you got a promo code too. We have one. Use Blueberry at checkout. That'll get you a discount on your ticket, and probably use the promo code Libsyn too. I'm sure we both have the same.
Yeah, I don't know actually what it is for Libsyn, but it probably is that.
Yeah. But I was looking at their COVID-19 protocol. We'll be following a safety measure required by the state of California and the county of Los Angeles. So we're probably going to have to wear a mask inside, regardless of vaccination status. So I'm hoping that will be lifted by.
Well, you're starting to see a trend around the country of people just dropping all mandates and all mask requirements, and all that stuff is starting to happen already.
Well, California and New York will be the last to go. So
no, actually, I think it was New York that actually.
I think they got sued into some event, but who knows?
Yeah, I thought it was New York State.
Not New York City, but
yeah, it could be a difference between the state and the city. They decided to completely eliminate all mandates, and I think we're going to see more of that happen. Would be my guess.
Well, good. Time to get back to life.
Yeah, right.
So
that's true.
So anyway, I guess we'll see what happens there. So anyway, the Ambies presentation on the 22nd, and you're going to find out if tickets are available. Probably not, but we can watch it live. But the podcast Hall of Fame, should we?
That's open to the public.
Should we talk a little bit about that?
Well, we can. I'll share as much as I can share about it right now.
I did get to vote. I'll say that.
That's good.
And I was allowed to submit selections. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys have, I can say it, but I won't reveal it. I have seen who the inductees are.
Well, I wouldn't say anything because that list may not be entirely up to date.
Oh, interesting.
Because of, those people. Those people have a choice on whether or not they would want to participate or not.
Aha. All right. So that therein lies a discussion for after the Podcast Hall of Fame.
Right. Right. So I don't want to make any announcements.
No. But
who's been inducted yet until it's all nailed down. Let's put it that way.
So anyway, there is a list. Let's just put it that way. And there was voting.
It's going to be 8 individuals, and they're all going to be significant contributors to the development and present day of podcasting. It's a hard list to come up with because there's so many people that deserve to be on that list.
There was a list about that long.
Yep.
And almost
it's longer than that.
Yeah.
Longer than that. It was like a Google Doc. I think
that's all.
I think it was like 40 or 45.
Yeah, I saw
people.
the Google Doc. Yeah,
Right.
It was pretty significant. And everyone on that list, I was like, yep, good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
Exactly.
Who's that? And looked them up. Oh, yep. Clicking through, because sometimes you see a name like, oh, what's that name? What did they do? And then you link through. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So, like I said, it's too bad we couldn't have had a catch-up year because we could have probably picked 20 out of that list.
Oh yeah, easy. And and it also created a good list for us for future events too. So, next year when we do induct another 8 people, more than likely we'll end up pulling from that same list.
Well, we got to keep it going so we can clear
Right.
that
So if there's
list.
new people
That's
that
right.
come in too, I mean,
Yeah.
that list can be as big as we want to make it. Actually,
Yeah.
it's just when we put it out to the past inductees and who they want to select for induction that year. I mean, what was their impact that year, and how does that look as you look back to the past?
Yeah, and I know that there's some pressure to make it so that people that are more current could get inducted. I think that 5 years, but
Right.
there's a lot of people that if we'd have been having regular Hall of Fames up to this point, we probably wouldn't be in this condoldrum. Is that the right word?
Yeah, it's almost like the analogy in my mind is it's almost like the line of hikers that are trying to make it up to the summit of Mount Everest.
Yeah. So, it's just so many deserving people out there. They've done
Right.
really amazing things.
Yeah, that's right. And it's hard to pick them out, but we managed to do that, and the past inductees did, and gave us a great list. So, but
I didn't see the voting totals, but I'm going to assume that you probably can't say, whereas a distinct list, or were there any ties?
I would say the most significant thing that I can say is that the number one vote getter is not going to be involved. Yeah.
I can't say nothing. I can't even hint.
That's about as much as I can say about that one.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, all right.
And it's not my choice or anybody outside of that individual's choice.
Right,
so.
right.
But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be obvious.
There's going to be a lot of speculation now. We just opened up a whole can of worms here.
Yeah. But I thought about it, and there's others as well. It isn't just him, but I think that there's a certain kind of philosophy I think some people have about these kind of things. They're either very private individuals, even though they're involved in a very public medium like podcasting,
right?
And they just don't need the accolades, or they don't need that in their lives, and it's a personal choice. So in some ways that's kind of what it's all about. So yeah, it's a fantastic honor, I think, to be in it.
I think so too.
But not everybody values that. So
that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
We have something to talk about after the show.
We do. Well, and I should tell you anyway, because you're a part of the voting committee. So, yeah.
But it's, I, excuse me, I would feel the same way even if I was not a current inductee. If I hadn't been inducted, I think that the value for the podcast industry over time is significant. Now, the Ambies is going to do what the Ambies are going to do. They're going to have their own thing. I guess each awards kind of has its own thing.
Right.
So I think it's all good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the people that more than likely will be inducted, it's going to be a great set of people. I mean, I'm not, by telling what I said earlier, is just to take away from anybody that's on the list.
Right.
They're all fabulous contributors in their own right, and they deserve to be up there.
And there's a dozen people that were like equally, or 20 or 30, they're equally deserving.
Yep.
So that's the thing too.
That's the hardest part about it.
Yeah.
Actually, is how do you value contribution and significance in the podcasting? I mean, it's really, that's why we put it out to a vote, because I can come up with a list, and I did, but putting it out to all of the past inductees kind of gives a different perspective on it.
Yeah, because they all have different circles of people that they, and that's the way it should be, right? Because we don't all know. I go to events, I don't know everybody,
right?
Not by far. Someone walks up, it's like, who are you? And wow, nice to meet you.
Well, and also the podcasting medium, I think, has changed quite a bit from 2018. I think, in that span of time, this medium has exponentially grown in ways that weren't really relevant in 2018. So I think that had to be taken into account too.
Yep, I agree. Well, we'll see. When do you think there's going to be an official announcement?
I think we're shooting for the end of the month.
Oh, okay. So we're almost there at the end of the month.
Yeah, that's the goal anyway. There's still one individual that we're still waiting to hear from. So,
okay. Yeah, I think that I think evolution is going to be it's first of all, it's going to be a litmus test where we're at
of the comeback, right?
Yeah, of the comeback, and I have my fingers crossed. So I'm only taking one other person out with me to Los Angeles.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, we're only going to have 2 people, just because based on the prior event, we didn't need 3 people in the booth, or even 4. We just needed 2. So just because the foot traffic was pretty light. So until I got them standing 10 deep at the booth, then I'm not going to, and I'll probably make a mistake. I'll probably face plant every day after that show. But that's what we're going to do for NAB too. We're only taking 2 to NAB. We would normally take 4 to NAB.
Yeah, I think we're only going to have 3 people at NAB, I think.
And then only 2 of us for Podfest. So there's only going to be 2 of us down there. So we'll see how these events go.
So have you selected who that second person is?
I know who's coming down to Podfest because he's been selected to speak. Mike Dell's been selected to speak at Podfest. So he'll be coming with me to Podfest.
Got it.
And then Mackenzie will be coming with me to Los Angeles and NAB.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, because there's 3 events coming up.
Right. Along with some other interspersed stuff that we're going to different events that are not podcast related.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yep. So, the road show is about to begin. Matter of fact, we meet next week and have our banners up to date? Is our document, is our handouts up to date? What do we need to change? And, all that stuff. So.
Yeah. Did you see the former CEO of Pocket Cast is now our chief product officer?
So do you work for him, or where's the hierarchy there?
He's going to work for the new CEO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to be president and chief product officer. So we haven't had somebody that's kind of like our.
Hold on, he's going to be president
and chief product officer.
So where's Lori going?
She's the chief operating officer.
So she's not going to hold the title. Didn't she hold the title of president before?
I think she had that for a while. But
she's going to be the COO.
Right. Right.
Interesting.
Yep.
So who do the Robs work under?
It's an interesting question. I think I have dot lines to just about everybody. So.
Well, there's one person that is. Don't you have an immediate supervisor?
I would say it's actually a combination of 3 right now. It's Lori, Brad, and the guys over at the AdvertiseCast platform.
That's complicated.
So yeah, of course. Well, I mean, it's a lot of changes at the company. We're adding new people, and trying to integrate all these different products. And yeah, so it takes a lot of collaboration across all these different organizations, new people joining the company. So you kind of have to create
I'm glad you guys are having to
pretty-
deal with that. That's just
pretty collaborative of kind of workplace. Right.
It's got to be a madhouse.
Uh,
Your hair isn't turning gray yet.
It's not a madhouse. It's just trying to get new things built. I mean, you probably saw in the news that we finally kind of more seriously kicked off the Libsyn 5 platform. So, but it's still a project in motion.
Yeah, we've been watching the Twitter comments.
I would imagine you have.
I will say we fared better in our dashboard than you have.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Yeah. It's always a work in progress.
It is. It's a working, but we spent 2 years on we've spent 2 years revitalizing the whole stack.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, our stats is going to, we've done a huge amount of work on our stats, and people are going to, they're going to be wowed.
That's good.
Not only just the re-release, but all the other stuff. And I'll leave it at that. Stuff we have planned.
There's lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff, But, it's just like anything else. It's like, okay, when is that going to be ready? Well, we might have that ready by June. I'm like, oh, no. We got to go faster. It's not easy to get stuff turned out. Major projects take a while.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, take much longer than I want.
Yeah, did you see the page on Podchaser of that lists all of the 12 podcast awards to keep an eye on this year?
I did.
I was like going, wow, that's a lot.
At least they listed mine number one.
They did, actually. I was like, oh, well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it did drive some inquiries back. And I have to get the website updated with our new timeline for 2022.
Yeah, I think to some degree it's like a chronological thing.
Oh, is it?
I think so, because the Ambies
the Ambies will be before us, so.
And they actually listed the Hall of Fame in here.
Oh, good.
Thought that was interesting. But it's not listed at the top of the page.
No.
So they added it, but they didn't add it to the top of the page.
Well, I definitely appreciate Podchaser putting us at the top. A small win.
Right.
Small wins.
But it's going to be interesting at Evolutions in LA. I mean, I think that could be the real coming back. I mean, I got my fingers crossed that what's happening with this virus, people will become a little less worried about it by then. But who knows? Right?
Well, if they haven't, then how can people? Okay, I know we've lost a lot of people and all that, but it's time. I've lost a couple of friends to it, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
some vaxxed and some unvaxxed. So it's it's went both ways. So,
and it's not even talking about that issue. I mean, that whole thing has been so politicized.
Oh, it's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah.
That's why you don't watch the mainstream media.
Yeah, but yeah, it really at the end of the day, it's just getting back to normal again. If we ever are.
Here's where it's not really podcast related, but I think about my commercial office. I got 5,000 square feet that we're in there once a week, and not everybody's in there. And I'm thinking, I don't know how much, I'm thinking that there's an employee, wrapped up in my insurance, my electricity, water, the person that comes and takes out the trash, and the upkeep and all that's an employee's worth of expense every year.
Right.
And if the new norm is we're going to be remote, I will probably get a storage unit and put all our. We'll go down to being virtual again completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't need to spend that money. Why, so I think commercial real estate in this country is screwed.
Yeah, that's a very distinct possibility.
Because big buildings are standing empty right now.
Though a lot of companies are expecting their employees to come back.
Okay, good luck with that.
I know.
Because
I'm not saying that it's not going to be a struggle.
Well, because employees are going to say, "Oh, I'll go work somewhere else."
And that's what the big resignation that everybody
Right.
talks about is all about, right?
Yeah.
People don't want to go back to the office.
No, they don't. But
yeah.
At the same point, I understand the struggle. I'd like to have everybody back in the office every day. I'll be just kind of straight up. I'd like to. I think it builds for better collaborative. I think it's just better for the team. But it's if I did that, I'd probably have a bunch of resignations. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Tom says he's not even going to NAB. Come on, Tom. Come on out to NAB. It's going to be a good time. Here's what the thing is. Here's going to be the takeaway from NAB. It's going to be the same as CES.
Mm-hmm.
A lower number of people, but higher quality. The people that need to be there are going to be there. And those are the people that you'll want to talk to versus the person that's just at the show to be at the show.
Right.
So that's the big difference. That was what we took away from CES. We had much higher value contacts, interactions. So I think that's what's going to be at NAB. I think it's going to be smaller but high value. So I might be wrong, but that's my prediction. And that's probably a prediction for Evolutions too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the ones that are, I guess, willing to get out there and put themselves out there and take some risks and be aggressive, I think is what it comes down to. I think the days of playing it safe, I think
in regards to
about just playing it safe around, if you think that, staying home and
yeah.
Locked up is
I thought you were referring
for your as a way to based on fear or whatever that reason is.
I thought you were referring to business.
No, well, I mean it's all part of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Putting yourself out there.
Everyone that went to CES, none of us came back with COVID, or got COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were going to catch COVID, that was a place we would have caught COVID for sure.
Sure.
Based on the density, and there was still a lot of people there. Maybe because no one was shaking hands or even elbow bumping. Like I said, I had one handshake and one elbow bump the entire show. The rest of the time was like, none of that. So, but everyone was tested. They had to supposed to test before they attended. They were giving kits.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we'll see, I
mean, it's smart to take precautions.
Of course.
It's smart to be, to play things, as safe as you can.
Yep. And CES used to be a germ fest anyway. There was very few times, it's a 50-50 shot whether or not I was getting out of there without the crud. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even get the crud. I had a little runny nose. That's it. But I had a runny nose before I left for Vegas. So it wasn't like I got the runny nose in Vegas.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So I think the events can be attended safely, and I'm sure there'll be a mask mandate, and I don't see LA letting that up. If they do, and I'll be comfortable without a mask. But at the same time, I'll respect those that are, and it's you protect, do what you want to do.
Hey Todd, I'm looking at an article that is a little bit related to John Lee Dumas and his philosophy towards podcasting, and one of the things that he points to, I guess, is, and I was just wanting to get your opinion on this too, and share it with the listener here. Is does your podcast have to solve a real problem with your ideal listener? Do you think?
No. Podcasts are partly entertainment.
It should be, right?
Yeah.
It should be an emotional connection.
I guess
right?
It depends on your show, but do people listen to Geek News Central to solve a problem? I probably cost people more money than anything from that show because I tell them about stuff and they go buy it.
Well, I guess it's your definition of what a problem is. I think maybe the real question here. What's your definition of a problem? Is it maybe being informed about tech in your case, right? Keeping up with the latest breaking evolutions in technology is a reason that's the problem that's being solved by listening to your show. I think there's probably an argument for that.
Well, people come to the show to more hear my opinion on stuff than look for solutions.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So,
and I think it's key to kind of unlock this a little bit deeper than, because I think people have a very superficial take on that, right? Is that somehow it needs to be almost mechanical. You know,
I talked to a guy yesterday that does the Charlotte Readers podcast. He was our podcast of the month for January, and it was a great interview. It'll be in our Podcast Insider show tomorrow. And I always ask 3 questions. What is the genesis of your show? Why? Why did you start it?
Mm-hmm.
What are you getting out of it? And what is your audience getting out of it? It turns out what he thought he was going to get out of the show ended up being something completely different and has helped him with something he's doing today. And I won't go into too many details. I'll leave a cliffhanger there. But at the same time, his audience is split between people that are interested in writing and people that are avid readers. They want to hear from those authors. So he didn't set out to solve a problem, but he did get educated.
That could be seen as a problem.
Right.
It's probably not the right definition. It's more of a opportunity.
He had self-growth because of doing his show. I guess that's maybe the better way to term it. So I think from that perspective, yeah, I guess you did maybe solve a problem you didn't. Like you said, didn't know you had. But
it's not a typical type of definition of what a problem is. It's more of trying to unlock an opportunity.
What problem do we solve here at this show?
I think keeping people informed about what's happening in the podcasting medium and give our perspectives on it from the years of experience that we have to hopefully shape people's understanding of the medium and what has legs and what doesn't have legs going forward. But each listener has to make up their own mind.
Mm-hmm.
All we're doing is contributing, not unlike what a really good talk radio show host does. It just inspires people to think and to entertain to some degree.
True.
I don't know that we always entertain, but
we entertain each other, so that's the main thing, right?
Right. Yeah, it's not like we're a comedy podcast or something like that. And this raises another angle too, is that I think making a statement that it needs to solve a real problem for your ideal listener isn't really a view that's in totality of the medium. Look at some of the most successful podcasts out there. They're like true crime storytelling podcasts. Are they solving a problem?
No.
Maybe they are because they're trying to solve a crime, but I wouldn't say that they're solving a problem for the listener. I think they're entertaining the listener, or they're giving them something intriguing to contemplate.
For me, I think when I started my show, it was more of a thing I wanted to do to entertain myself. Because if I look at the perspective, I was a horrible blogger. You think I destroy the English language here bad. You ought to thank God for Grammarly, It's like lifesaver today. It's like having my English teacher right here with me, and I just put thing in the doc and it says, okay, here's what you did, stupid. So I think for me, when I started the show, it was because I didn't want to have to write all the time, and I wanted to be able to talk about the same thing and cover more ground in a short period of time. So I was doing it more for me, and also, and then build an audience that went along with that. So,
Right.
but the perspectives also change depending on the circumstance. And I think the biggest defining moments for my show was realizing how important these listeners were was when my dad died. I had
Mhm.
episode 200. I was supposed to record the day he was killed, literally after he'd gotten hit by a train. And, I say that kind of lighthearted now, but it wasn't so lighthearted then. It's what happened. And, there was no internet per se, dial up where I grew up at that time, because family who lived in rural America still do. And I came back 10 days later to 5,000 emails, from the fans saying, it taught me at that point that the audience of a show they're attuned to you very, very deeply, but you may not be attuned to them. And we've all had this happen. Someone's walked up to us. I've had people at airports, or I've been in a line at McDonald's someplace, or whether someone reached and said, I heard your voice and I know who you are, and come up and say hello. So it's so is the purpose to solve a problem? That wasn't the initial goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
and sometimes you can add value. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about adding value
to
your listeners in whatever form that takes. Is really the key takeaway. I don't know that solving a problem is the only value that can be driven to a listener. And then on another note with listening, John also talks about his top strategy for increasing listeners to his podcast. And he makes a comment, how many podcasts have you been a guest on in the last 3 months? Probably 0, right? Put in the effort, get yourself booked on as many podcasts as possible. And your call to action at the end of each show should be for those listening to check out your podcast.
Right.
So what's your observation? I mean, I've been a guest on hundreds of shows, and I'm sure you have too. Do you think that should be the number one recommendation for building audience and listeners?
I don't get interviewed on tech shows. So if I get interviewed, it's for podcasting, and they would be more driven to this show than my other show. So I would say, yes, we probably picked up some listeners from some interviews that we've both done. Our live events that we've done, we've probably picked up listeners.
Right.
So
that's why I push so hard on those live events at the podcast events, is because I do think it's a way to grow this show. And then also at the end of all the interviews, sure, I say I work for Lipson, and that's part of it too. But I also say I do this show.
Sure.
So, right.
So it is a. And I think sometimes, too, I get interviewed people wanting to go into the history of podcasting. So, I'm sure you get some of that as well. Having been in the space from the beginning, we've got perspectives that most people don't. There's probably less than 50 people that are actively involved in the space that were here in the beginning that are actually actually actively working in the industry or actively having shows.
Right.
Because if I'm a Don and Drew, their perspective is as a creator. They don't have the perspective of having to run a business and all that underlying stuff that goes there. So their perspective of how the space is and how it's evolved is much different than even what mine would be. And same type of, you and I are more closely aligned in, because we see everything every day in the back end, the pains and the challenges and the wins and, all that stuff. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's always evolving and changing.
Yeah, that was something else I said during the interview. I said I try to listen to as much stuff as I can because you don't want to be the old dog.
In some ways, we can't help that anymore,
Well,
Todd.
no,
But
it's that it is very, very easy.
yeah, you just got to keep up with stuff.
You know,
What's-
and
what
I
changes and
and my team is got some longevity in it. So for my team, I'm like, let's not make sure we're not getting stuck in a rut. You know, we got to look at this. This is something, you know, that's trending. Is this the fish lure going downstream, or is this something where it's going to cause an impact? So, you know, I try to keep my team informed and stuff. I see they bring stuff. We have a special channel in our Slack channel that just talks about, look at this, see that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and provide commentary. You know, why do you think this is important? So, yeah, like you can't be the old dog. You know, it's very easy to run home to mama and just do what you've always done, but that's not going to keep you in business and keep a podcast growing.
And it does take a certain, you know, a significant amount of momentum to push through that tendency if you've been around any industry or medium. And I think I think all you have to do is look at what the process was with radio and what they had to do. I think it's an example. They had to bring in fresh blood. It's hard to evolve your thinking on things when you've thought a certain way about something for so long.
And I think part of it too is I use the good analogy is the media buyer analogy. You know, they keep you know, just put new dates on the RFPs and keep recycling them because they don't want to go too far out of their comfort zone. You know, because they have to make their numbers, and if they don't, they're done.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to, you know, hopefully they get something that was well-oiled machine from the predecessor and rinse, wash, and repeat, or wash, rinse, and repeat. That's the better way to say it. But
yeah.
So it's, you know, it replicates across the space, but if you can change your perspective and say, okay, something new we can do, how can we think outside the box? I guess, you know, I grew up, even though I did 25 years in the military, the last really 13 or 14 years, the job I had was purely about someone walking in the door and said, here's a gadget. It will do this.
Mm-hmm.
Normally that gadget would have taken 10 years to get into an airplane. I would have that gadget in an airplane in 3 days. And within 2 weeks, we'd say, you know, throw it in a trash can, or you give me 10 more. You know, it was one of those types of things. So that's kind of the way I look at the podcasting space is we have to try to think outside the box as much as we can to try to evolve. And that's easier said than done.
Yeah, no, I agree. John Lee Dumas also says in this article, he says, if you follow the lead of most podcasts with vague and broad topics, you will struggle to gain any traction whatsoever. He recommends find a niche you are passionate and knowledgeable about and identify the biggest problem and design your podcast to deliver that best solution on a consistent basis.
The choo-choo train's going by. Here's my thought on that. And this is, again, related to a customer discussion I had this week. He said, here's my topic. And I'm like, okay. I said, you do realize podcasting is global. And I said, can you, just by your title of your show, does that get you 2 years worth of content where you're producing an episode every day?
Mm-hmm.
And the individual said, no. I said, then you got a problem. If you don't have 2 years worth of content in this narrow topic zone, I said, then you need to open it up a little bit. So narrow is okay if there is a fresh supply of brain,
Right.
every week. If you do one episode a week, what is it, 52 weeks in a year? You do 50. You got to have 104 people that can fill that niche content just to get to year 2. Now, how long has John been doing his show? He's been doing a while now, right? 10 years?
5 or 6 years. I don't know, at least. Yeah.
So, he's obviously found something pretty tight to stick to, but his show, I know a lot of people love John's show, but his show to me is boring because it's the same questions.
Right.
Again and again and again and again.
Well, it is a focused niche.
It is a focused niche.
Yeah. But I think also, this concept that you were talking about of kind of upscaling a niche, you can kind of look at it from two perspectives. I mean, if you take a niche, I think the power of the podcast is how do you expand the niche beyond what the niche is?
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you can bring in other elements into it to add to that topic and that niche,
the ancillary stuff
that maybe make it look like you're applying some improvement and some evolution of that niche, right, or that topic, is kind of how I like to look at creating content. And this is what I've always done with the podcast that I've done is always have like a future hat on, right? It's like, this is the niche, this is the topic, this is the industry, but where is it going, right? What is the next thing? Where is it happening in the future? It's not so much about where it is today. And that's what we do with this show. I think, we could have easily run out of stuff to talk about if we only talked about basic podcast stuff, but we don't.
Yeah, we don't.
We like dissect it, whittle it down, expand it, pull it apart, expose elements of it that maybe others haven't thought of. And that's the power of it, right? And that's why people will tune in and listen to this show, is because we dissect it and we pull it apart and we look at it a little closer and we expand our perspective on that closer view.
And if truth be told, there's probably some folks in each of our companies that are a little nervous about us doing this show because we really put ourselves out there.
Yeah, I do feel at times some pressure to not talk about certain things.
Yeah, of course.
But then again, I most of the time I push through it because I'll approach it from a different perspective that doesn't undermine it, right? Or do anything that makes it look bad. Because there's always an angle to topics that you can take that adds value. And I think that's the real power of being a niche show is learning how to research it, dig deep, listen to others, and come up with ideas around niche topics that are outside of the box.
Well, we definitely don't do any research, but we live this every day, 24/7. So,
yeah, I mean, like I've done during this whole show is I've been doing research while the show's been going on. So, and that makes it more real time. I mean, that's what's great about live, and that's why I love the show is that we can just get up here and talk about whatever we feel like talking about. It's not like it's something that you and I spent 2 hours trying to prep for.
Yeah, right. I sometimes I might think 3 minutes before the show starts, what do I want to talk about this week?
Right.
And so what was top of mind when we started the show? I was having some technical issues. The power stayed on; it hasn't clicked off since we started the show. So it's it's what's going on in real life. What's happening right now.
Yeah, and then at the beginning of the show, we welcome that listener into the program and invite them in with small talk and stuff like we would do if we were sitting around a table at Starbucks or something like that. Yep. Right. So.
Well, yeah. Would you believe we're at 90 minutes?
We always make it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Sometimes we go short, but
today went real easy. Today went just like it was gone.
Yep.
And if you asked me to summarize what we've just talked about in the last 90 minutes, I'd be like, I'm going to have to go back and listen to the show.
Hey, there you go. It's another listen. Right.
So what is the word again that they use? You can boost the New Media Show on Podcast 2.0 apps. So let the Satoshis fly. Bring you donate them, then I'm going to have to figure out how to get them out. That's
Right.
then I'm going to have to learn the other half.
They're going to pile up somewhere, and we just don't know how to get to them.
Here's the thing. I'm supposed to be a nerd. I'm supposed to be a tech nerd, but what's happened is I've gotten into the grind of running a company, and the tech stuff. Sadly, now, I try to keep up.
It's Angelo. It's Angelo, right?
Well, Angelo doesn't know anything about Bitcoin either, So it's like, I'm like, we need to learn about this lightning stuff. And he's like, oh, that's a fad. Well, it's not a fad. It's making head ground,
Well, it's part of the growth and development of the blockchain, which is really at the core of all this.
So it's so like yesterday I was trying to reset a password for an account I wasn't supposed to be in because a link took me somewhere. I was like, wow, that's cool. How do I get into that? I wasn't meant to get into it. It says, you don't have an account here. Oh. All right.
So, all right.
I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter.
I am also on Twitter at Rob Greenlee. Follow me there, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all the big platforms. So, if you want to reach out, send a direct message, that's fine, or send an email to robg@lipson.com or rob.greenlee@gmail.com. So any of those will get to me, and I like to stay accessible out there, and I will answer your emails if you send it through. So there are a lot of people out there that like to hide. I'm not one of them. So.
So you can go over to newmeshow.com if you're not already. Hit that follow or subscribe button and listen to us in your favorite podcasting app. And definitely have us on the subscribe or follow, because that way you won't miss an episode. Yep. And tell your podcaster friends about this show. Provide this as a good resource. Tweet about. I know we're getting more people tweeting about us than we ever have, so please do that. And we do have a Twitter account that we don't use a lot for this show. It's at NMS Podcast is where the Twitter account is. So if you want to give a follow over to the show Twitter account, which will always live stream, you can do that. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Let's see if I can. I was not prepared. There we go. I am prepared now to put the big graphic up on the screen. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.